You gave away my apartment without asking, and then smeared cake on my face to thank me." That's what I wanted to say, but instead I walked out, quietly. I was never really part of that family photo, not when my birthday cupcake came from a vending machine, and definitely not when they gave my condo to my pregnant sister during a wedding toast, like it was some kind of gift I didn't know I gave. I've spent 30 years being the dependable one, paying bills, showing up, staying silent, until I found the will Grandma left behind, and my name, stitched right next to my sister's. If you've ever been the quiet one, the steady one, the one who never asked for much, this story will show you how silence can become strength, how boundaries can be reclaimed, and how dignity doesn't need permission. My mother called me bitter, but she signed the papers herself, acknowledging I owned half the house. And when I placed Grandma's embroidered handkerchief on the table in that mediation room, no one had anything left to say. If you've ever wondered when it's finally okay to say, enough, this might be the moment you've been waiting for. Before we dive into the story, if you're enjoying these meaningful stories, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you never miss out on more. Now, let's start the story together. The string lights above the tent swayed gently in the breeze, and somewhere in the corner, the jazz trio slipped into an old Ellington tune. The lavender centerpieces glowed softly in the late May sun, but all I could see was my name missing from the seating chart. I stood there for a few seconds longer than necessary, reading the rows again, hoping maybe I had skimmed too quickly, but it wasn't there. No Lauren Hale, no table assignment. Just as I reached for my phone, a well-meaning cousin tapped me on the shoulder and gestured toward a garden chair tucked near the side table. "They said you're over here, closer to the drinks, right?" she added, like it was a treat. I smiled, sat, and didn't argue. That's when I noticed the cake. My cake. The chocolate buttercream one I had driven across town to pick up that morning. Margaret's favorite from that tiny place near my condo. It sat on a separate table, removed from the grand three-tiered vanilla one that gleamed under a silver stand. Mine looked smaller, humbler, but I knew it tasted better. I should have known better than to expect a seat, or acknowledgement, or even basic courtesy. The speeches began just after the champagne started to settle. Jason, the groom, said a few mumbled words about luck and laughter. Amber looked radiant, 6 months along, her peach dress floating over her belly. Then Margaret took the microphone, all elegance in her lilac sheath and pearls. She began with a charming anecdote about Amber's childhood love of lemonade stands, then pivoted quickly to the future. "We're thrilled to announce," she said, "that Amber and Jason will soon be welcoming their first child. And thanks to the generosity of Lauren, they'll be starting their married life in her lovely apartment downtown." There was a beat of silence. I blinked. Surely I had misheard. But the room clapped. Someone behind me cheered. Margaret smiled directly at me. It's just so nice to see sisters supporting each other. I couldn't move. I hadn't offered them my apartment. I hadn't even known Amber was pregnant until 2 weeks ago. Then came the frosting. Margaret walked over to the side table, dipped 2 fingers into the buttercream, and approached me slowly. "This one," she said, "is my favorite. Just like you, Lauren. Rich and dependable." With that, she pressed the frosting onto my cheek in a mock toast and laughed. Others laughed too, nervously, politely. I didn't say a word. I reached for my bag, stood up, and walked out of the tent. No one stopped me. The sound of clinking glasses and smooth jazz followed me all the way to the driveway. In the car, my cheek still sticky, I opened my phone and typed one word in a note to myself: enough. The moment I closed the condo door behind me, I felt my shoulders drop. Not in relief, not quite, just absence. The quiet of home had a way of making the noise stick louder in my bones. In the bathroom, I peeled off the blouse I'd worn and dropped it straight into the sink. The frosting had crusted slightly where it hit my collar. I turned on the tap and let the water run over the fabric, pink streaks swirling like cheap watercolor. My fingers hesitated at the mirror. still a faint smudge of buttercream near my temple. I wiped it with the corner of a towel, eyes tracing the woman staring back at me. I looked fine, normal, even composed. But that had always been the problem, hadn't it? I'd learned early how to present myself just enough not to cause ripples. I walked into the kitchen and pulled the old shoebox from above the fridge. It was taped on one side, scuffed at the corners. The label had peeled off years ago, but I knew exactly what was inside. I carried it to the couch and opened it gently, like some fragile part of me might still be sleeping in there. A house key from the home I grew up in. One of those tiny, brassy ones that looked like it belonged to a dollhouse door. A stub from my first paycheck. I had worked weekends at a library, shelving books nobody touched. A receipt for a cupcake, not just any cupcake, my 14th birthday. I'd bought it myself from a grocery store and eaten it in the garage so no one would ask why there were no candles. There was a math award certificate with a crease through the middle. Dad once used it to level the leg of a wobbly dining chair. I'd found it under the cushion months later, still folded. A picture of Amber in a ballet recital tutu, beaming. I remembered watching from the back row while Mom adjusted her headband just before curtain call. My own dance lessons were canceled after the first year. Too expensive, they said. Amber got a new SUV the week she turned 17. I got a refurbished bike with a wobbly seat. I didn't ask why. I learned to budget before I learned to drive. Waitress through college. Never took spring breaks. Bought this condo on my own without a co-signer or a family pep talk. I didn't ask for much. I just wanted space to be mine. At the bottom of the box was a folded handkerchief. Grandma Evelyn had stitched my name in one corner. Lauren in lilac thread. She used to slip it into my lunchbox sometimes with a mint or a scribbled note. "You're not invisible." Tucked beneath the cloth was an envelope. Yellowed, thick, with the corners curled in. Grandma's handwriting on the front. I hadn't opened it. Not when she died. Not even when the house was sold. My hands moved before I had time to stop them. I slid a finger under the seal and unfolded the letter. A legal form. Her will. It listed Amber and me, equal owners of the property, equal. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. I held the handkerchief to my chest, thumb tracing the threads of my name. "You gave me a way out, didn't you?" I whispered into the silence. The night breeze pushed through the open window, and somewhere beyond it, a new kind of space began to form. The rain hadn't stopped since morning, tracing quiet rivers down the office window as I sat across from Ethan Blackwell. I hadn't seen him in years, not since Grandma's memorial, but he looked exactly as I remembered. Neatly pressed shirt, rimless glasses, and a kind of calm that didn't come from lack of stress, but from years of outliving it. "Evelyn always said you'd come see me one day," he said, folding his hands, though I figured it would be about something warmer than property law. I gave a tight smile. Grandma was good at leaving the right things behind, even if the timing stings. He gestured toward the documents I'd brought. "Let's walk through it." So I did. The wedding, the toast, the frosting, the laugh that wasn't really a laugh, the apartment I supposedly gave away, the shoebox, the sealed envelope, Grandma's name on the will, naming me as co-owner with Amber. Ethan listened without interrupting. Only occasionally did he scribble something in a yellow legal pad with a pen that clicked softly every few lines. When I finished, he nodded once. "They have no legal claim. You're co-owner. Amber can't live there without your consent, and certainly not with your mother's." "I'm not trying to tear anything down," I said. "I just want limits, boundaries, space to breathe." "Boundaries," he repeated with a thoughtful hum. "You'd be surprised how rare those are in families with inherited guilt." He drafted a formal letter right there, language as crisp as his shirt cuffs. The message was clear. Amber could buy out my share at market value, or the property would be listed for sale within 60 days. There were no accusations, just facts, stated cleanly. I reached into my bag and handed him my phone. "There's something else. A voicemail." He slid on his glasses and hit play. My mother's voice burst through, low and rising like a storm trying to hold in thunder. "And after everything we've done for you, Lauren, you think you're better than us? You think a paycheck makes you worthy? That condo doesn't change what you are. You're just bitter. You've always been bitter." The recording lasted 14 minutes. Ethan didn't flinch. When it ended, he exhaled. "She's angry because you stopped asking for a seat at the table. You've built your own." I blinked, the air in the room suddenly clearer. "This isn't just about defending something," he said. "We're reclaiming it." He handed back my phone. His assistant popped her head in briefly with a folder, then disappeared again. Outside, the rain softened. That night, as I curled onto my couch with tea and the letter draft resting on the table, my phone lit up. Amber. The message was short. "Please don't do this. You're going to ruin everything." I stared at the screen for a long time before locking it again. Everything, I thought. Or just the version where I stay silent. The pounding started just after sunset. Not a knock, not a ring of the doorbell. Just 3 sharp, deliberate hits, spaced too perfectly to be anything but rehearsed. I didn't have to check the peephole to know, but I did. Mom stood outside, clutching a photo frame like it was a shield. The picture of Amber and me in matching gingham dresses, gap-toothed and sunburned, tilted slightly in her grip. Behind her, Dad shifted his weight from foot to foot, hands jammed into his pockets as if trying to disappear into the carpet. Amber's eyes were puffy, red-rimmed. Jason stood slightly behind her, one hand gripping her elbow, the other tapping his smartwatch like time might speed things along if he asked nicely. My phone was already set on the console, screen glowing softly. I tapped record. Across from it, the hallway mic I bought in college for a podcast I never launched flickered green. Another thud rattled the door. "Lauren!" Mom's voice was crisp and sharp. "We're not leaving until you open this door." I didn't move. I let the silence stretch, the air heavy with summer humidity and the leftover scent of pad thai on my coffee table. The wall clock ticked, louder than usual. "You're tearing a roof away from a child," Mom snapped. "Do you understand that? A baby. Your own niece or nephew." A murmur from Dad. "Blood over paper, Lauren. That's the rule. It always has been." Amber sniffled. "I never asked for your apartment." Jason cleared his throat. We can figure something out. I can cover rent for a few months, maybe more. It doesn't have to go to court." Still, I said nothing. Margaret's voice cracked. "You're being cruel." The hallway went quiet for a moment. I imagined the neighbors standing behind peepholes sipping tea, texting each other with phrases like, "It's happening," or "Finally." The doorknob jiggled once, then stopped. "You think this makes you strong?" Mom's voice was lower now, tight. "You never understood family, not once. You were always outside looking in." I reached out and stopped the recording. One gentle tap. A long breath slipped from me. Footsteps shuffled, a few mumbled words I couldn't catch. Then something thin slid under the door. I waited. Only when I heard the elevator ding and the hum of its descent did I lean forward and pick it up. A legal envelope, printed across the top. Notice of representation. Mediation requested. I held it in both hands, fingers steady, and stared at the hallway through the peephole one last time. No one there. Just the echo of what they wanted me to be. They were 10 minutes late. I'd been ready for years. The conference room was cool, quieter than I expected for a 4th of July. A faint boom echoed now and then from the riverfront, distant fireworks being tested against the sky. Inside, the carpet muted every step, and a tray of untouched lemon water sat sweating quietly in the center of the glass table. I'd worn navy, simple, deliberate. Ethan nodded at me once as I sat, his own files already squared and aligned. I had a binder, 8 tabs, no jokes. The door creaked open. Margaret entered first in soft gray and a frown she couldn't quite hide, Thomas followed, eyes already fixed on the wall as if he wished it would swallow him. Amber, pale and tentative, walked beside Jason, who clutched a slim folder and blinked too often. Opposing counsel, a junior associate with over-gelled hair and over-creased pants, cleared his throat. My clients are here today in hopes of resolving what we feel is a misunderstanding. There is imminent hardship. This is an expectant couple. Ethan slid the will across the table. Notarized, dated, executed by Evelyn Hale. Line item 13 clearly designates shared ownership between Lauren Hale and Amber Hale. A pause. Papers shuffled. I reached into my binder and tapped play. The audio filled the room. 14 minutes. Raised voices, blame, accusations. Margaret's tone brittle. Thomas mumbling about loyalty. Jason trying to patch holes in the air with hollow offers. Amber's choked sobs. My silence stretching between them like barbed wire. When it ended, no one spoke. The hum of the air conditioner seemed louder than it had a minute ago. Margaret's fingers clutched her pearls. Thomas stared so hard at the wood grain of the table, I wondered if he could see into the past. Amber blinked fast and Jason looked away. I added the handkerchief to the table. Folded, embroidered, untouched. The one Evelyn had made when I was 7, stitched with my name in cursive blue. Margaret gasped. Amber bit her lip. Her voice cracked. I didn't know. I didn't answer. Ethan cleared his throat. Our offer is simple. Buy Lauren's share at 50% of the appraised market value, or the house goes on the market within 30 days. The junior associate glanced at his clients, sweat beginning to gather at his temple. Silence again. Then a pen scratched across paper. Margaret's hand trembled as she signed. She didn't look up for a long moment. When she did, it was the first time I saw her face without a script. Just human. Unsure. Everyone rose slowly, chairs scooting back across carpet. Amber hovered near Jason, still quiet. Ethan gathered our materials. I stood first. The rest is up to the realtor, I said calmly, then turned toward the door. The hallway outside was silent save for a soft thud of a firework in the distance. I didn't need to look back. Some endings don't need applause. The house sold in 9 days. I never drove by once. The email came at 6:17 p.m., just as the sun began slipping below the red brick row houses across the street. House sale closed, the subject line read. I didn't open the PDF, just marked it as read and tucked the phone face down beside a folded dish towel on the kitchen counter. The scent of fresh paint still lingered, especially near the hallway where I'd spent 2 long weekends sanding, priming, and brushing over the past. The color was eggshell, soft and forgiving. I chose it on a quiet Sunday morning, standing in the aisle with 20 swatches in hand and no one to rush me. There's a strange comfort in picking a color just because you like it, not because it matches someone else's idea of taste. Outside, the city had softened. Crickets chirped steadily beyond the screen door. That rare hush of late summer had settled in, when even the breeze seems to take its time. I moved barefoot across the new oak floors, cool, smooth, a kind of luxury I hadn't known I'd missed. Every step felt like a closing bracket on the years I'd spent tiptoeing. The phone buzzed again. Amber. A photo attachment. Meet Jackson. Hope you're well, the caption said. I glanced long enough to see the baby's eyes shut tight, swaddled in green, with a pacifier tipped sideways near his cheek. His tiny hand curled into a fist, like he was ready for anything. I didn't enlarge the image, just set the phone face down again. In the hallway closet, I reached for the shoebox. Familiar, dusty. Always nearby but untouched. Inside was the stitched handkerchief, a few receipts faded into irrelevance. And now, one more item, the binder tab labeled Final. I folded the cloth, placed it on top, and closed the lid. This time, it stayed closed. The balcony was warm but breezy. I stepped out with a stemless glass of Virginia Cabernet, let the chair creak gently under me as I sat. From next door, Mrs. Dorsey waved once, a slow arc of her hand. I returned it with a smile and raised my glass slightly. No words, just a nod between neighbors who understood peace didn't need to be loud. Somewhere nearby, a cork popped. A faint laugh followed, but here there was only quiet. And me. I looked up at the sky, just a smear of orange left, and whispered, "Thank you." No audience, no applause, just the sound of my breath, slow and unburdened, wrapped in the cool promise of a life finally chosen. As I sat on that quiet balcony, the sky dimming and the crickets steady, I realized peace doesn't always arrive with applause. It often comes in silence, chosen on your own terms. Sometimes, family can be the people who raise you, and sometimes, they're the boundaries you learn to raise for yourself. Healing doesn't always mean reunion. It can mean release. And letting go isn't weakness. It's making space for what truly fits. If this story reminded you of a moment when you had to choose yourself, I hope you'll share your thoughts. We'd love to hear how you've found your way back to stillness.